I'm Annie.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Lactation Business Coaching with Annie and Leah, where we talk about the smart way to create a compassionate and professional private practice.
Let's dive in.
Hey there, Leah.
Hey there, Annie. How are you?
Well, I'm great because we just spent an hour with Rachel O'Brien kvetching about charting woes and trials and tribulations and all of our stressors. And it was very cathartic. I felt seen. I was with my people. It was a lot of fun.
Definitely. I feel the same way. I think it was really helpful to hear that a lot of people have encountered kind of like the same struggles and frustrations when it comes to charting. And we were talking a lot about the unicorn that lactation charting is. So it was such a great conversation. And we're so excited to have Rachel here with us for this after show. Let's talk about what we talked about.
Because
And everything else we want to talk about, right? There's so many things I want to talk about.
Because one of the things we didn't really have time to talk about because we ran out of time. It was just it went so fast, that deeper dive was Rachel mentioned not being able to use an in the box program because it doesn't chart the things that she wants to do, which is primarily the bottle refusals, which is your specialty. And I was thinking about for guiding bottle breakthroughs last year, and it'll be in this year's iteration too, you did that chart review where you went through. And so when you're talking, so one of the things that Rachel said was a pain point for her was I have to import all of my charts into a new system. And it's not just to have them, it's because I would love to tell us about that chart review you did and how you're using your data, because I know that's so important to you.
Yeah, so IntakeQ has some cool features in terms of data collection where, let me think off the top of my head, if you go into IntakeQ and then go into questionnaires, that tells you a lot of the stuff that I was looking at for my chart reviews. So that was one thing I did where I would go into questionnaires and there would be certain questions in my intake forms that I could pretty easily pull out in terms of knowing what my chart review was. But then also what I did for the chart review was I found all of the charts that were bottle refusal consults. I keep a separate form. So I have a bottle refusal chart template. So I looked for all of those that I had filled out. And then I downloaded the chart information in a Excel file for each one of those. So not one by one. I did the whole chunk at once. So I forget how many, 700 something, I think, at the time. And then what I tried to do, which was hard, was I scrubbed through and looked to see what things I could figure out that were commonalities. So the nice thing about IntakeQ is there are a lot of checkboxes and radio buttons. And so those things, you're going to get the same answer. What I really struggled with, which I found amusing and annoying, was I have a lot of text fields that I fill out as the charting goes on, right? So I have one field that says, which bottles have you guys tried already? And so one of the things I was trying to do when doing my chart review was seeing does everybody have Dr. Brown's? But I wrote things slightly differently. So sometimes I would write Tommy Tippy, and sometimes I would write TT, and sometimes I would write Tommy, and then nothing, and then Tippy. It was very hard to get that information out if it was anything that I typed in. Because, I could do a typo, I could do whatever, and suddenly that information wasn't easily grabbable or scrubbable. Now, I am sure that there are programs and things out there that will do that kind of analysis for you if you can, upload a whole giant chunk of data. But then the other thing was, this is all my client data. I'm not sending this to anybody. I don't have permission from 700 people to get their particular chart reviewed. So that's how I did that. I don't know how you would even do it in any of the other charting programs.
I do find the exports that IntakeQ makes are really good. And there is a way that you could do that if you took your Excel file and go by column and just delete all the columns that have protected health information in them. So you're de-identifying, and that includes the number of the client, the sign number in your system. So
Yep.
everything that is PHI, so you just have the data and then you can take that and upload it to Claude and start asking it questions about it. And that is where it can figure some of that stuff out, but it also, you can say, what questions do you have for me about this? And so using an AI, though, not to tell you, not for it to interpret for you, but for it to help you organize things and to come up with questions to ask or point out things that maybe you hadn't noticed, but it might point out something you might be like, no, 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 that's, I know why it did that. The robot doesn't know.
When I did this, when I was doing the program last year, I did do things like I would copy the entire column of text that was the names of the bottles, and I would throw it all into ChatGPT, and I would ask it to tell me how many, and it was just making so much stuff up. It was just like,
I think
and
it has the
I
same problem we
yeah,
do. Like, if it sees 2 slightly different ones, it's like, "Okay, that's 2
yeah,
different ones."
yes, and I couldn't even like I was like, okay, just anything that it says, any word, just tell me how many times that word, and they were like 73 bajillion. And it's one of those things, right? The thing about AI is if you don't know the answer, it's very easy to believe what they tell you. If you
Yeah.
Yes.
if you do not have the knowledge to know that's wrong, you go, "Oh, cool, now I know." But if you have enough knowledge about the topic to go back and double check, you realize, "Holy crap, you're just making stuff up and we're all just taking it as real." So, Claude wasn't around, I don't think. I don't think Claude
I don't
existed
think
long
so.
ago.
I think Claude is better. They have this like deep analysis. It's expensive. I mean,
Yeah.
you would be paying for it, but they have like a where it takes longer and it thinks harder about it. My favorite AI thing that ever happened to me, which is when I was like, "Oh yeah, that we cannot trust anything," was I was talking to John. I was like, "How come nobody has ever made a movie about Ernest Shackleton, famed Antarctic explorer? Do you know about Ernest Shackleton? He took all his people in a boat and they got encased in ice in the Antarctic, and he led them all to safety and like they didn't die." And
Did
there's like
they
a
make a
great
show about
IMAX
that?
document. Yeah, there's like an IMAX documentary about it that's like amazing. But and I love survival stories, but I was like, they should make a movie about it. And I was like, I Googled, I'm like, Ernest Shackleton movie. And then it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, John, there's an Ernest Shackleton movie coming out starring Tom Hardy from Mad Max and Fury Road. And he was like, wow. I was like, oh my gosh, he's perfect to play Shackleton. And I was like,
Oh,
oh,
no,
no,
there's not.
Gemini just is like, "This is a good idea." Because I was like, "Wait, it's coming out tomorrow? How have I
You're
not
like,
heard
"How is
anything
that?"
about this?" Then I went on IMDb. I was like, "This is all lies." I was like,
Mm.
"How you can't do that to me?" I wanted to see that movie now so bad, and now I'm like, "That would have been a great movie," and it doesn't exist, and it should.
Doesn't
So,
exist. Yeah, it's fun. AI is super fun.
Yeah, and
I
the
mean, I
charting and all the getting all of that with AI, that's the other, like, ongoing when we had just touched on that a little bit during our conversation was kind of the limitations that different charting platforms have around that and kind of different workarounds and things like that, but it was interesting to hear, like, other people kind of what they're thinking about when they're thinking about charting platforms. Like, if you're new and starting out, like, what would be some ways to come about it? We went through both, like, oh, try to have one that you'd stay on forever, but also the point that Rachel was making, like, here's some other perspectives to think about it. And definitely want to hear that conversation if you're somebody that's starting out in private practice, because really dived a little bit into like some different ways to think about how you would first approach a charting platform, which I thought was so helpful. And like, why weren't we around when we all started? Like,
I know, right?
I'm like, why wasn't I helping me? We were having this conversation back when we started. That Annie and I always say, like, our gift to everybody is like, don't do all the things that we did. Learn from our mistakes. Learn from all the ways that we were like, dang it, why did I even do that? So you don't have to go through all those trials and tribulations.
So I wanted to also ask Rachel, I think because we're talking about like AI and like now you've been doing this for I registered your bio since 2015. So you again like also made a lot of mistakes. But now this is a little bit of a swerve, but I have my clients are saying things to me like I asked ChatGPT and
Oh,
I had
yeah.
one client that said, "You told me to do this. I asked ChatGPT and ChatGPT told me to do something else and now I don't know what to do."
Mhm.
Oh my
The
gosh.
And so, like, I would imagine that for something like bottle refusal, that there are probably a lot of people asking, have you ever asked ChatGPT what to do if your baby is refusing a bottle? The ChatGPT is
Definitely
like,
have.
who needs food?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do I do it all the time. And, like, I'm just always super curious. I'll go on Reddit. I get a lot of people from Reddit, a lot of clients from Reddit, which is funny because when I go on Reddit and look for, like, bottle refusal posts, I'm like, I don't know where they're getting my name from because I don't see, but whatever. Anyway, they're starting a lot more too to get the generative AI that comes up was a Gemini at the top of Google. So it's almost like I have this new, like, final boss to fight because not only is it the pediatricians and the grandmas and the aunties who are like, "Oh, no, just starve your baby, it'll be fine. I don't know why you're giving in to them." But now I have this supposedly all-knowing, all-seeing thing that's just vomiting stuff out at them. And it gets interesting sometimes. Every time I check whatever program I'm looking at, they're constantly, quote, "learning," right? So I feel like every time you get a slightly different answer or a very different answer, and so I'm always looking at, are you calling this an oral function issue or are you calling this a behavioral issue? And that's one of the things that I tell my clients when they're trying to figure out whose advice to listen to. Like, to me, the easy question is, do they frame this as your baby having a hard time doing something, or do they frame this as your baby is being stubborn? And whichever one of those is, that informs the entire way that they're going to come at this. And the AI switches back and forth on it, which is, or,
Mhm.
it doesn't understand the context of, like, it's an oral function problem and also you shouldn't feed them. Like, it can't do that stuff yet. But yes, I am also getting people who are checking with ChatGPT or using that to figure out what to do. And then for some reason, not having a lot of success because it doesn't think the way that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that.
A robot doesn't think like us.
Shocking.
Yeah, I've had some
I could,
clients recently also tell me like, "Hey, I created this like expected growth things and like I asked it like all these different questions and like, is this accurate?" And I'm like, I don't even know where that it's pulling some of this stuff from. It was kind of crazy because I was like, I don't know where it's getting this. Like, it's
yeah,
definitely not from generally recognized authoritative text on this. It's
Right.
I don't know. That's the scariest thing. It's like it's pulling from everything, which means a whole bunch of it's not great,
If
and
you're
that
pulling from everything, then you're getting nothing. You can't, it doesn't,
yes.
if your source is everything ever, that's not a source. Like, you get mush. That's all it is.
Yeah, yeah, you can't collate that down to any kind of
Mm-mm.
good information or
I was just gonna say, I'm not at all against, I mean, yes, on paper, I'm very against AI, but I'm not one of those people who's like, I'm not going to use it because I do use it. I'm not saying this like it's TLN and I say, you couldn't pay me to go near TLN. That's different. I think that we all need to really use our critical thinking skills with this AI stuff. And not only what it's telling us, but like the processes that it tries to guide us through. And you know how easy it is to be like, no, ChatGPT, that wasn't exactly what I meant. And they're like, oh, you're right, I was wrong. And sometimes maybe they weren't wrong, but they're just like, oh, you said I was wrong. And it's like, no, please, please.
don't be
totally.
so like anything I say, you're like, I'll turn it to a positive and make
Mm-hmm.
you happy.
Mm-hmm.
That
That's a
makes you
great question. What a wonderful way of framing that
yes.
dialogue. You put it so perfectly. Yeah, I'm not gonna say I don't like having that said about my writing, but it's also like you have to be, yeah, discerning. I mean, I think that people though, as much as our clients and people are using AI and looking to these sources, I think there is an awareness of the limitations and that if anything, it's making enough people hungry for an actual person that having the kind of training that we have to be an IBCLC, to get extra training in bottle refusal, like in guiding bottle breakthroughs or the other, all the other kinds of specialized trainings. Rachel and I both have the perinatal mental health certification, like just where you're like, I can show you what training I've done. I have an education and I am able to make decisions and I'm able to put things together that no amount of like, you don't even know how to ask the question to get the answer that you want. And so I do think that there's an awareness of that, and that's only going to make the need for the kind of services that we provide they're not going to go anywhere. AI, yes, it can sort of like replace us, but it's not doing a good job, and it really doesn't. And the AI can't like make you feel like, even if you don't give your clients a hug, you can make them feel like they got a hug. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hug my clients, but like I want them to feel like they were taken care of. And that's something you can't replicate with. You can do it through a screen on virtuals like Rachel. I know Rachel does with all the virtuals she does. She really does an amazing job of communicating empathy through a screen. But a robot, it doesn't love you. It
No one's
never
ever gonna
will.
walk away from an AI going, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much better." Like,
Totally.
and that is my favorite thing I'm realizing lately. My favorite thing to hear a client say is, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much better." Like as they're
Yeah.
leaving. And no matter how much smoke AI is gonna blow up your butt, you're you're not
Never gonna
gonna
make you
walk
feel like
away
that.
feeling relieved unless you talked it into making you feel relieved.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was so great. Thank you for sticking around after the deeper dive and talking with us about all these things that bother us in common. It's just like always, Leah and I always say the reason we did these deeper dives and why we keep doing them is just the chance to talk to other people in private practice because, it's such a weird, like we were saying in the deeper dive, it's the weirdest job. It is so unicorn unique. Nobody gets it, but you guys. So thank
Yeah,
you.
and then we are reminded when we're all together, like, one, probably whatever you're experiencing, you're not the only one in the world of lactation, and two, you are not alone, and we create these spaces so that we can support each other, but also, like, grow our knowledge base, help each other see different perspectives, like, keep sharpening each other so that we can be the best version of lactation consultants out there in the world, and we really appreciate you being here with us today, Rachel, and in our deeper dive. And I hope everybody takes a minute to go check out both this deeper dive that we just got done doing and reviewing, but also all the ones we've done with Rachel before, because I feel like we always have the best time.
We do. We
It's such
do.
good energy. So we appreciate you coming back with us once again.
Well,
And
thanks so
she's
much for
done
having
some
me.
on yeah, well, we've done 2 with you on 1 or 2 on bottles. We've done 2
Yes.
with you on bottles, so those are in there. Guiding bottle breakthroughs, this is our 3rd iteration, Rachel's
Yep.
3rd iteration. I say we because I build it and sell it for her, but I don't. It's the content is 100% Rachel, but we are now finally going to evergreen. So once you're in and you get the library and can go back and watch her videos as many times as you want to. So it'll be lifetime access once you're in. And we have some ideas too about building community. Rachel's working on ways to really promote guiding bottle breakthroughs providers on her website. And I'm always trying to figure out ways to get us connected outside of Meta owned platforms. So
Mm,
the more of you that are there, the better it is for all of us. And it's a great training. I use it all the time. So,
All the time. Yes.
yes,
Same.
thank you, Rachel.
you're welcome.
Guidingbottlebreakthroughs.com. You can check it out. Check it out on Rachel's website. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a great rest of your
Bye.
day. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend and leave us a review. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.